Welcome to HDTV. You're now rocking with your boy. Had to hit the high note on you nuggers. We lost a great one today, man. And this is just sad. This player was probably the most underrated superstar legend in history. Elgin Baylor, Lakers Hall of Famer and NBA great, he passes away at 86. Baylor was the first NBA player to surpass 70 points with a 71-point game December 11th, 1960 against New York. Elgin Baylor, the Lakers' 11-time NBA All-Star who soared through the 60s with a high-scoring style of basketball that became the model for the modern player. Died Monday. He was 86. The Lakers announced that Baylor died of natural causes in Los Angeles with his wife Elaine and daughter Crystal by his side. With a silky smooth jumper and fluid athleticism, Baylor played a major role in revolutionizing basketball from a ground-bound sport into an aerial show. He spent parts of 14 seasons with the Lakers in Minneapolis and Los Angeles during his Hall of Fame career, teaming with Jerry West throughout the 60s in one of the most potent tandems in basketball history. Elgin was the superstar of his era. His many accolades speak to that. Lakers Governor Jeannie Buss said in a statement announcing Baylor's death. Baylor's second career as a personnel executive with the woebegone Los Angeles Clippers was much less successful. He worked for the Clippers from 1986 until 2008 when he left the team with acrimony and an unsuccessful lawsuit against owner Donald Sterling in the NBA alleging age and race discrimination. The 6'5" Baylor played in an era before significant television coverage of basketball, and little of his play was ever captured on film. His spectacular style is best remembered by those who saw it in person, including West, who once called him one of the most spectacular shooters the world has ever seen. Baylor had an uncanny ability to hang in midair indefinitely, inventing shots along the way with his head bobbing. Years before Julius Erving and Michael Jordan became international superstars with their similarly acrobatic games, Baylor created the blueprint for the modern superstar. Baylor soared above most of his contemporaries, but never won a championship or led the NBA in scoring, largely because he played at the same time as centers Bill Russell, who won all the rings, and Wilt Chamberlain, who claimed all the scoring titles. Knee injuries hampered much of the second half of Baylor's career, although he remained a regular All-Star. West and Baylor were the first pair in the long tradition of dynamic duels with the Lakers, followed by Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the 1980s before Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal won 3 more titles in the 2000s. But Baylor's Lakers lost 6 times in the NBA Finals to Boston Celtics and another time to the New York Knicks. Los Angeles won the 71-72 title, but only after Baylor retired 9 games into the season. Baylor arrived in the NBA in 1958 as the number 1 draft pick out of Seattle University. He immediately set the new superlative for individual scoring with the 55-point game in his Rookie of the Year season, before scoring 64 on November 8th, 1959. Then the NBA single game record and the Lakers record for 45 years until Kobe Bryant broke it. Baylor became the first NBA player to surpass 70 points with the 71-point game December 11th, 1960 against New York. Chamberlain set the record of 100 points in 1962. Baylor averaged 38 points in the 1961-62 season despite doing active duty as an Army reservist. He scored 61 points in a playoff game against Boston in 1962, a record that would stand for 24 years until Jordan broke it. Baylor averaged 27.4 points and 13.5 rebounds during his 14-year career. He scored a total of 23,149 points in 846 games and was inducted to the Basketball Hall of Fame in May 1977. Elgin Baylor was born in Washington, D.C. on September 16, 1934. He was named after his father's favorite watch, an Elgin timepiece. Although he starred at 2 high schools, Baylor struggled academically and briefly dropped out working in a furniture store and playing in local recreational leagues. Baylor went to the College of Idaho because he was given a scholarship to play both basketball and football, but the school fired his basketball coach and cut several scholarships a year later. Baylor transferred to Seattle and played from 1956 to 58, averaging 31.3 points per game and leading the team to the 1958 NCAA championship game, where it lost to Coach Adolph Rupp's Kentucky Wildcats. The year before, the Lakers persuaded Baylor to leave college a year early. The club was near bankruptcy after finishing 19-53, falling far since their glory years in the late 40s and early 50s in Minneapolis with center George Mikan. Baylor transformed the franchise with his scoring and style. Minneapolis beat the Detroit Pistons and the defending champion St. Louis Hawks in the 1959 playoffs to make it to the NBA Finals, losing to the fledgling Celtics dynasty. Baylor averaged 25 points, fourth in the league, and was third in rebounding with 15 a game. He was easily voted Rookie of the Year. The Lakers moved west to Los Angeles in 1960, and Baylor became the centerpiece of their Hollywood revival. He averaged 35 points in the Lakers' first season in Los Angeles, second in the league to Chamberlain. Jerry West arrived from West Virginia in 1960, and they immediately clicked, averaging 69 combined points per game. Baylor played in only 48 games on weekend pass because of his military service, but the Lakers still won the Western Conference by 11 games. Baylor's 61-point performance against the Celtics in Game 5 of the Finals put the Lakers ahead 3-2 in the series, but they lost to the Celtics in overtime in Game 7, the pinnacle of the Lakers suffering at Boston's hands. Frank Selvey missed a 10-foot jumper that would have won the game in regulation. In film of that moment, Baylor appears poised to get Selvey's rebound and disappears from the screen. Baylor contended he was pushed out of bounds by Boston's Sam Jones. I've always felt that was our championship, Baylor told the Riverside Press Enterprise in 2000. He never got closer to a ring. The following season, Baylor became the first to finish in the NBA's top 5 in 4 different statistical categories: scoring, rebounding, assists, and free throw percentage. The Lakers reached the finals again and lost to the Celtics again. Knee problems that began in the 1963-64 season started a slow decline for Baylor. He never averaged more than 30 points a season again, though he remained a competent scorer. Baylor played his last full season in 1968-69 and suited up only sporadically until retiring at 37 in the fall of 1971. Baylor's post-playing career never lived up to the magic of his on-court skills. The expansion New Orleans Jazz hired him as an assistant coach for their debut season in 1974, and he eventually replaced Butch Van Breda Kolff as coach during the 76-77 season, going 87 and 135 in parts of 3 seasons. Pete Maravich's Jazz never made the playoffs, and Baylor resigned after the 78-79 season. In April 1986, the Clippers hired Baylor as their vice president for basketball operations. The Clippers made the playoffs in 92 and 93, but the franchise became the modern model of sports ineptitude for most of his tenure, with poor drafting, indifferent fans, and skinflint financial dealings. Sterling largely was blamed for the franchise ineptitude, while Baylor received both admiration for his tenacity and ridicule for his inability to fix the Clippers' woes. Their 22-year relationship ended abruptly in October 2008 when the club put Coach Mike Dunleavy in charge of personnel decisions. Baylor, then 74, filed a $2 million lawsuit against the Clippers. Sterling and NBA in February 2009 alleging he was fired because of his age and race. Baylor also said the Clippers grossly underpaid him. The Clippers denied the allegations and said Baylor had resigned voluntarily. A Los Angeles County jury unanimously ruled in the Clippers' favor in March 2011, refusing to award any damages. Besides his wife and daughter, Baylor is survived by a son and daughter, Alan and Allison, from a previous marriage, and sister Gladys Baylor Barrett. Elgin Baylor, this is sad to hear this, that he's gone. Elgin Baylor is really the most, like Charles Barkley just said on the halftime, he's probably the most, how do I say? He's probably the most underrated superstar ever in history. You guys talk about Michael and Kobe. This was Michael and Kobe before Michael and Kobe. Like, straight up, Elgin Baylor was a monster, especially in the post, from the elbow. To me, he reminded me more of Kobe than Michael. Michael to me was more of a Dr. J, but had a better mid-range shot. And the David Thompson. But guys like Elgin Baylor doesn't get their proper due. They don't. They don't get their proper due. It's a shame that they don't, because Baylor was a monster on that court, man. It's just that he was in an era where you had Oscar, you had Jerry West, you had Wilt Chamberlain, you had Bill Russell. You had so much talent around. But Elgin Baylor was that guy who a lot of scorers and a lot of people really look at today. And a lot of people, you know, when you seen Kobe in his last game, Kobe gave him a big hug. You know, gave him a big hug. Because, you know, Kobe loved Elgin, man. Elgin loved Kobe, and Elgin used to be like, man, that boy's, he used to be like at times, that kid there remind me of me so much, because he did, because, you know, the work ethic, the talent, you know, it's sad that he doesn't get his due. He doesn't get his due or anything. And what people don't understand, Elgin Baylor was Kobe before Kobe. You know, Kobe always talks about him. Kobe sat down in an interview. He sat down, and make sure you go see it. He talks about Elgin Baylor. I think he's talking to Jackie McMullen. And he's talking about, man, how his footwork was impeccable. You know, and it was. His footwork was amazing. Like, we've never seen like footwork like that, like, in a long time. And to see how he played the game is awesome. His approach to the game, what he wanted to do, you know, he wanted to be the best and everything, and he tried to win, you know, but it just wasn't in the cards for him to win. And that's sad. But Elgin Baylor, man, to me is to me, you could say he was either the greatest. You could say he was the greatest two guard next to. I would have him probably over a lot of the guys, but I think D Wade, AI, and Reggie Miller. I think he was just as good, if not better, than those guys. But he's the reason we have Michael and Kobe. He showed you how to score. And the guy was averaging damn near 14, 15 rebounds a game. And he still was giving you 30 points. So that just shows you he was a double-double monster, and that he was just, his style of play was impeccable. You know, and it just goes to show you that we need to learn our history. The NBA needs to do more to highlight these players. I don't care if they played against 5 or 8 teams. These guys are just as good, if not better, than these guys today. And it's a travesty that the NBA doesn't do more to highlight their old school players. It's a shame. It's just ridiculous to me, especially when Adam Silver made that comment. Well, LeBron, you might have the NBA Finals Award named after you. If you guys change it to his name, I am officially signing a petition to go after the NBA, because that is some bull crap. You got all these superstars, old school players that you don't give love to. You give it all to these clowns and all these young, spoiled little brats that you had guys who paved the way for these spoiled brats to get their money. But I'm not going to make it about him or Adam Silver or this bum behind league. But rest in paradise to Elgin Baylor. You were one of a kind. You're the reason Mike and Kobe are here today and giving us that aspect of the game, showed us how to play basketball. The man who changed basketball, Elgin Baylor. Rest in paradise. We're out. Deezy.